We have a special guest today, which is Charlotte Rooney. Charlotte, welcome. Thank you for joining us live and for being the guest speaker. I'm going to give a quick introduction about you, then I'll leave the floor to yourself to do a proper introduction, which I don't like doing introductions, but that's the way to do it. So that's one of the things I have to do actually on a live call. So Charlotte is a leadership and executive coach who has led, I see, humanitarian teams across 12 countries and scaled a startup from 3 to 100 people. We should talk about that then. But Charlotte, please, without further ado, tell us more about your project, your big project, how you have led those teams, and then we'll crack on with the questions. Thank you again for joining in. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me, Jona. Gosh, difficult to do a quick précis of all of that, but my name is Charlotte Rooney. I am the founder of A Half Managed Mind, which is my executive and leadership coaching business, where I aim to work with women in leadership. And whether that is leading your own business or leading a team within somebody else's, I'm still on a mission to help more women stay in leadership because they feel that they are cut out for it, because they feel that they do have the training and support they need to be as successful at it as they would like to be. And also because they figured out how to do it in a way that feels authentic and, dare I say it, even fun to be in a leadership position, as I say, in your own business or in somebody else's. Before setting up my business, which I did about 4 years ago, that's when I was doing the leading teams in all different countries and scaling a startup. I used to be an aid worker. And so that's how I ended up leading teams in so many different countries, because I would be on short missions deployed in various different countries around South America and Africa. And I spent some time in India as well, across fields as varied as primary school education, technical and farming education, and also healthcare in emergencies and war zones. So that's kind of some of my background.
That's a good intro, actually. That's an excellent intro for the audience who is going to watch us live, who is tuned in. Otherwise, they will have the replay available across social media platforms. Charlotte, so you are a member of the Moving Women community, and I'm very thankful for your input and your participation in there. We talk about no, we talk about women. Obviously, that's a platform how it is built, and the mission is obviously to help 100 women in 100 days. But can you tell us a bit more? So the platform is obviously for women who are stuck and are looking to get empowered and move forward in life and in business. Now talking about that self doubt, we all have our self doubts. We are all stuck at some point, most of the time, or several times throughout the year in our business, in our lives. So I always think that there is a combination. You cannot have one and leave the other out. So the personal life and your business, they act together. So they go together. So how can we help women shift from this self-doubt, be more in an assurance position? So they are assured that it's going to be all right. They're not going to lose the authenticity. They are not going to be someone that is not visible, actually. How
Mm.
can we do that in a place from coming from a place of leadership, actually, to make it, to sum it up?
Yeah, it's a really interesting and a really knotty question, because, as you say, we all have those moments when we feel self-assured, and we have those moments when we do not, and when we're filled with a lot of self-doubt. And so for me, the first thing that I always do with people when they're thinking about wanting to feel more self-assured is to dig into exactly that, right? Self-assured is not something that you are. It's not like a quality that you either have or don't have. It's a feeling that you're experiencing based on an opinion that you are currently believing about yourself. So let me kind of tell you what I mean. So when you're in a moment
Yes,
of
please
feeling,
elaborate.
yeah, when you're in the
Yes,
moment of feeling
thank you.
self-doubt or imposter syndrome or whatever you like to call that bit where you don't feel confident, it's because either consciously or unconsciously, you are believing a thought which is some flavor of, I'm not capable of doing this thing, or I am not qualified enough to do this thing. I don't have the experience to do whatever I'm doing. And because of that, you start to doubt your capability, you start to doubt your ability to do the task in front of you, whether that's, recording a reel to promote yourself on Instagram, going live on LinkedIn, leading a big meeting, whatever it is. And that thought creates the feeling of self-doubt, which you might experience as, those sweaty palms, or, a dry mouth, or maybe kind of a tightness in your chest. But it's not because those thoughts that you're having are necessarily true. Because usually when you actually go out and try it, you find that you are able to do the thing that you were afraid of doing. Maybe you didn't do it as perfectly as you would have liked to, but if you go out and try, you're able to do it. And so when we think about it in that term, when you think, okay, self-doubt is something that comes from what I'm believing about my own capability, self-assurance is the same thing, it's just the other side. So instead of holding the opinion I'm not capable, self-assurance comes from holding the opinion I am capable. I can figure this out if I've never done it before, or I have relevant experience that I can use and I will be okay. And when you believe I can do it, that's when you're going to have that feeling of self-assurance, that rather than, sweaty palms and a dry mouth and a tight chest, for me, self-assurance feels almost like I've got a little iron bar inside me, holding me up and getting me ready to speak out into the world. So I always attack that shift from self-doubt to self-assurance from that perspective to begin with, which is to really unpack the fact that it's not true. It's not a thing that's real about you. It's an opinion you are currently holding about yourself that you therefore have so much power to change and influence.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. I have a question within the question, basically. Uh, so, how so we think that we are. I'm not gonna go into the I'm not good enough, the bit of I'm not good enough, but in the bit that I'm not qualified. This is something I've spoken to other business owners, mainly female founders. I think that's something I find it more in the women world. To be honest, I've encountered that more in conversation. That we think that is I don't have the ability. I don't have the certification. I don't have proof that I'm good enough. What is this proof of good enough? What is so? Why do we think? What is your take on? Why do we think that is? We think that we are not qualified, whilst we are qualified because that's what we're doing. That's what we do. So that's our
Mm,
job. We're talking about business in this case. So
yeah,
what's your take on that?
it's I think there's a lot of reasons why people might feel that they're not qualified, even with, multiple certifications saying the opposite, their framed degree from Harvard behind them on the wall, and they still believe that they're not qualified. There's a lot of reasons for that. And for each individual person, there will be things you could dig into from the way that you were raised and the environment that you grew up in, which are going to be more pertinent or not. But fundamentally, it's usually to do with the way we have either consciously or unconsciously absorbed that it is right for women to be in the world. Often we have grown up with being told not to be boastful, or not to pretend, not to be arrogant, thinking that you're better than someone else. Whereas, if you are genuinely more capable than someone else, you have a skill that they don't have, acknowledging that isn't arrogant, but we have often been told that it is when we were growing up. And so we conflate the idea of confidence and genuine acknowledgement of the skills that we do have, because we do have skills, but we conflate that with being something very unpleasant, which is being seen as being, overconfident or arrogant or pushy. And I think what that often leads us to do is to swing wildly back the other way, and therefore kind of deny to ourselves that we have any qualifications at all. So I think there's that kind of dynamic that plays for a lot of women. The other one that often plays in there, and I think this plays for everybody, not necessarily just women, is that your brain's primary function, what it really wants you to do, is to stay alive and to stay safe and to not use very much energy. So that's your subconscious brain's approach to keeping you safe and alive in the world. And when we think about taking a risk, trying something we haven't tried before, even if we do have a certification, if we haven't actually tried to put that in practice, there is a part of us that sees that as dangerous. There's a possibility it might go wrong. And when it goes wrong, I could be judged by other people. I could judge myself. I'm probably going to have lots of thoughts and feelings if I don't get the result that I want to. And so our brain sort of logically comes around to, it'll be safer and easier if we just get another qualification first. If I have enough qualifications, there's a possibility that I can then get to the point where there's no risk ever of failure. And that's kind of what it's trying to do with that narrative of telling us, you don't have the skills yet. You should get another coaching qualification, even though you've already got 4, or, whatever it is that your brain is offering you. Because that learning process feels like work. It feels like progress. It feels very important. So that's satisfying, but it's not risky because it doesn't require us to go out and try something in public where we might get judged or where we might judge ourselves.
There's so much to talk about this, right? So we cannot cover that in the next 15 minutes or so, but I'd like to go on to carry on with the questions that I've prepared. I'd like to prepare in advance,
Mm-hmm.
as you may know. But I'm thinking, so we always think that there is something to prove. So I think that ties up, also linked with our uh, um, sense of showing. So we have something to prove. Why do we think that we have always something to prove? Why do still why do we still have this thing in our mind? Is it linked with what we were just talking about? Or?
So to be perfectly, straight here, I am not a psychologist. I'm a coach. So my
Right,
understanding of what I'm sharing here is going to be necessarily a layperson's understanding. But
right.
the way that I understand that it works is that the reason we feel we have something to prove is that at some point in our lives, we have associated achievement and approval. And that's often the case, the way we are praised in school or the way our parents might have encouraged us when we were little. You come home with 10 out of 10 and you get a lot of positive feedback. Oh, good job. You're so smart. Well done. But our little brains then see, oh, 10 out of 10, got to have that. That's when I get approval. That's when I am liked. That's when I'm safe. That's when I'm loved. And various different ways that might come across, from your teachers, from your parents, from, the world around us, which is constantly lifting people up for their incredible achievements. We see Richard Branson or Elon Musk being praised in the press because they've made so much money. And we're like, yep, achievement makes you valuable. And so in our heads, we have that idea that we have to prove something. We have to meet somebody else's standard in order to be accepted. But the thing is, I was thinking about this one when you posed me this question, and I'm not sure that there's necessarily, in and of itself, anything wrong with the idea of having something to prove, right? It can be really motivating if you think, I'm going to show people what I'm capable of. I'm going to, I think I couldn't do this thing. I've done extra training. I've been practicing. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to be able to do something that I couldn't do before. I think that could be great. But the problem is that it's never enough. So if you could do that and say, okay, I'm setting a goal, and say it's in my business, I'm setting a goal, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a reel every day for 30 days. I'm going to post that on Instagram, and off the back of that, my aim is to win X number of new followers and Y number of new clients. And you set yourself this goal and you've got a lot of doubt and fear about whether or not you can do it, but you go after it anyway. And every day you post, even when you've made a mistake and it's not perfect, but you still do it and you learn and you grow. And at the end of those 30 days, if you were then in a position to look at that and go, yes, I did it. I proved something to myself. I proved that I could do this, that I could learn, that I could grow. If you could then sit in that moment and feel really proud of yourself, then that drive to prove something has actually been hugely beneficial. It's only, I think, a problem if when you go through all of that and at the end of the 30 days, you then sit there and you go, well, I still haven't made a perfect reel. I suck at this, and give up. Then it's a problem.
Thanks, Charlotte, for your insight and your input on the question. The other question I have is about the leadership. Let's go back to the leadership because obviously you're a leadership coach, executive coach. How can so? Okay, the audience here is mostly female entrepreneurs who have either they are small business owners or they have a team to manage. The team can be in between 3 to 10 people. So it is not an easy job. It is not an easy job to lead the teams. The team performance. I'm gonna go to the team performance part of the business. It's what your business is built on. So if your team is performing well, your business is performing well. So you are getting not necessarily more clients, but bigger money in your bank based on how the team is performing and if they are reaching their targets based on what you are setting them to do. So we have small, so the group, the audience is small business owners. So the teams are not on a large scale teams as you might have worked in the past. But what is one tip that you can share with us today for those business owners who are leading a small team? Let's say 3 to 10 people.
Hmm.
What is the best tip?
Gosh, only picking one. All right.
Best step, best action. There's something that is best and easy for them to implement. I know nothing is easy, but let's think it in a positive way. It's easy to implement.
Yeah. So I think for many of the people that I work with, particularly when they are just beginning to work with teams or whether they're just growing their teams at the moment, the best tip that I can remind you of is you hired this team for a reason, and it was not to stand behind you and cheerlead with pom poms while you do all of the work. And it's a real shift moving from being the person who did all of the things because you either didn't have a team in your business or there were just a couple of you and so everyone had multiple hats. It's a real shift going from a doer to being a leader of teams. And you have to see the role that you have in that leadership position. You have to see that as equally important and valuable as the people who are, whether it's hands on keyboards or hands on client or whatever it is that you're delivering. And I think for a lot of us that's actually quite a difficult shift. We often start as entrepreneurs because we love being busy and we love having our fingers in all of the pies and doing a little bit of everything. And so when you grow to that position of like, now I am, I'm no longer the head of marketing. I've hired a head of marketing. I'm no longer the sales closer. I have a sales closer who's doing my calls. I'm no longer the person who schedules all of the social media. I have a social media manager or a VA. It's often a bit of a sense of, oh, well, what am I here for then if I'm not doing all of those things anymore? So it's reminding yourself that the leadership role, the strategic vision that you provide, the direction that you are giving to everybody in the team, and the way you help every single person in the team to see how they fit in and support the ultimate aim of your business, that role is the difference between your team being successful and happy and motivated and engaged and not. So it's hugely, hugely valuable. And it's also very different to what you were doing before you had a team.
that's a difficult step, definitely, for whoever is taking that step or is in the process, or whoever has implemented that for some time. I think it's an ongoing um, ability to deal with people and to deal with your teams, as well as deal with clients and everything else that you have around you, I guess. I want to touch on the communications around teams. Again, we're talking about small teams, not a medium-sized or large-scale teams, but let's stick to the 3 to 10 people again. What is one of the most common? Let's say, what is the common mistake in communications within the team? Let's not go to the tips. Let's see let's call the negative side.
Probably the most common misconception or mistake that I see with people in communicating with their teams is assuming that people have understood and agree with what you've told them when you haven't properly circled back and checked. Um, and this can go both ways. Sometimes it's you thought you explained really clearly what the next step was, what the next goal was that everyone was working towards, but actually you just weren't as precise as you could have been. And so some people have slightly misunderstood. And that means that actually one person's kind of heading over this way while everyone's heading over that way. So there's a piece there about being really, really clear and going into every communication with your team with the thought, what do I want this person to know, think, feel, and do after this conversation? So that's kind of one element of not being clear. The other thing that sometimes comes up for people is that they assume that people agree with them because the person hasn't actually vocally disagreed with them. But then they see after a time that although they have asked someone to, you know, had it with a client recently, they were introducing a new product line into her business, and she had explained to all of the people, this is exactly what the product is, this is how you talk to our clients about it, this is the benefits that it has, so I'd like you to start, talking to our clients about this. And everyone's like, yep, 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 and then did nothing. And so there, what you've got is she didn't understand what was going on. She said, it's I've been very clear what I need them to do. I've been very clear about what the benefits are for us, what the benefits are for the client. I don't, what's the problem? And the problem is that assumption that because she'd explained what seemed like the benefits from her perspective, the other person would agree and therefore just naturally want to take the actions that she wanted to take. Whereas actually, there was a part of the persuasion that she hadn't fully closed off. She hadn't fully helped her team to feel confident and competent to have these conversations with the clients. And rather than telling her, they were just avoiding having the conversation. And so that's the kind of other error that sometimes people make in their communication, is not fully understanding what the other person needs to hear to be on board, and just giving them what persuaded you and thinking that that's going to be enough.
So this is the last question, I think, for today, Charlotte. Sorry, so many questions on the table, but uh, do you think that a system, so a structure within those teams or conversations will help your team members? So if you have something, I'm not talking about SOPs because I'm not going to go in details. I'm not the expert in the field, definitely not. But something that is there, so they can go back, they can go through details and understand how it works in terms of a system, the structure that they have to follow all these communications. Let's say.
Yes, I definitely think it can be helpful to have a system in place when thinking about planning and executing your communications with your team. As I mentioned before, I always think that it's worth starting with the end outcome that you're looking for. So after this person has read your email or come out of the meeting with you, what should they know that they didn't know before? How would you like them to be feeling? That's a really helpful one to think about when trying to motivate people. And for them to be feeling that way, what do they need to be thinking? Which can be linked to what they know and what you told them, but kind of helping them to be there. And based on that, based on what they know, what they think, what they feel, what action would you like them to take? And if you make all of those things clear in your communication, and potentially, yes, have it written down so people can come back to it afterwards, that's really, really helpful. The other piece that I would always recommend is closing the loop. So you might explain to someone, you know, I want you to go out and sell this new product to every single client that you speak to this month. And the aim would be to get 5 people into our beta program, let's say. Then the way you close that loop is you answer any questions the person has, and then you ask them to tell you what is their goal, what are you expecting them to do, what is the time frame, what exactly are they taking away from this conversation. And then you can check when they tell you, have they understood what you thought you were telling them? So do they come back and say, I'm going to sell this to every client I speak to this month with the aim of getting 5 people into my beta program. This is where I can find, the extra information and FAQs about the product if somebody asks, and they tell you everything that you need to know. And that's a really good way of checking that they have understood what you have told them. And it's also, you can tell by the way somebody plays it back to you whether they're on board or not. And that can also then give you the space to open that conversation if they still have a doubt or they're concerned about something and you haven't fully allayed those fears. That'll give you a chance as their leader to have that conversation and move them to the place where they are feeling how you want them to feel, which is potentially motivated or, inspired or confident or whatever feeling you think is going to drive them to take the action that you want them to.
I really enjoyed the conversation. So many insights and practical tips actually you have shared with us. Thank you so much, Charlotte. So it's not a question, but it's an opportunity. If you want to tell us what you're up to, if you're running I don't know, a webinar, or if you're dealing with a specific sort of project. If you have any links, you are more than welcome to promote and share them in thread or in the conversation just now. But please do, and thank you so much again for everything you've shared so far.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I very much enjoyed our conversation today too. And yes, just to say for anyone listening, if you are looking for help with communicating with your team, with motivating your team, with feeling more confident as a leader, and as I said at the beginning, maybe even getting to the point where you enjoy being a leader, I actually have a special offer on at the moment, and I am offering free 360-degree leadership assessment calls to any woman who is looking for that support. So that's 1 hour where you will get my brain and my framework looking at everything that is going on in your leadership life and also your non-work life, so that we can spot where you might have the opportunity to make a tiny couple of tweaks that could really change from that feeling of self-doubt to self-assurance, authentically being yourself and getting the results that you want to get with your team. So if that seems interesting to you, I will share the link in the chat here so that you can click and book through, or you can also just send me a DM on whatever platform you're watching and I can share the link that way if you can't find it.
Actually, so whoever is not connected with you, I would highly recommend that they connect with you today, either follow you on Instagram, but LinkedIn obviously is the place, and you can take the conversations there. Please DM Charlotte if you have any questions. Charlotte, if that's all right with you. I don't have
Absolutely.
any answers. When it comes to Teams, it's a different expertise that you have, obviously, and then I'll be very happy to link anyone from the audience who's going to watch the replay or is tuned in to link you up with Charlotte. But please do, and then take up the offer. It's a formidable offer, actually, Charlotte. A very good offer. Thank you again so much for sharing everything with us. And thank you everybody who watched, is tuned in, and otherwise you will watch the replay and catch up next week with another episode of Moving Women Forward. Bye bye, everyone. Thanks, Charlotte.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye
Jona.
bye.